Chapter 10:19. Brother, I'll be waiting for your triumphant return. Yi Juetian put away his frivolous smile and said solemnly. He patted his chest. Yi Hua lowered his head and looked towards his younger brother, then patted his chest as well. Soon after, Yi Hua squeezed his legs and ran towards the palace. Arriving at the entrance of the imperial palace, Yi Hua felt that this place really couldn't be compared to my own imperial palace. There's no style at all. Today was the day of the expedition, and all the civil and military officials had come to send them off. After all, this was the largest battle in history. He could not be underestimated. He couldn't let his guard down either. Yi Hua, who walked into the palace, had a cold look on his face, as if everyone owed him money. However, no matter how cold Yi Hua's face was, he still had to call out those who should be called out. Thus, Yi Hua just listened to the others shouting. Lord Yi. Listening to it was very comfortable. At least these 3 words contained the word master. What is Grandpa? That was master. Wherever I go, I'm a big boss. Not satisfied. Come and fight. My butt is going to hit you in the face. Prince Yi. At this moment, Huangli walked over to Yi Hua's side. Although it looked like a greeting, in actuality, they had already formed an alliance. Today, Huangli was wearing a set of silver armor, which was similar to the one that Yi Hua was wearing. Just that, there was an additional dragon accessory on the shoulder of the armor. Although it was just a small detail, it showed the difference between the royal family and outsiders. Yi Hua shouted out indifferently, Eldest Imperial Prince, your complexion looks good today. Thanks to Prince Yi, I slept well. Huangli appeared to be very low-key, and this point made Yi Hua very satisfied. If you are asking someone for a favor, then you must have the attitude of asking someone for a favor. If you are asking someone for a favor, and you still put on a look of this is something that should be done, then Yi Hua would give you a slap on your face. Yi Hua nodded his head. The people who were walking by the side all saw this, and they felt that this Prince Yi and the big prince were working together. This time, the 9th prince had the initiative. If the first prince could turn the tables, there would be a good show to watch. The importance of the throne couldn't be demonstrated without a bloodbath in the battle for the crown prince's position. This gradually became a custom. When they set off, they did not hold the meeting in the main hall. Instead, they held it outside the main hall. From afar, Yi Hua saw a thing that was shining with golden light. Huang Yun went to the battlefield dressed like this. Were you afraid that others wouldn't know you were the boss? Truly showing off, don't you want to stand on it? Yi Hua asked in a low voice. Huangli was a little embarrassed and said in a low voice, the commander-in-chief just stood there. Then you have to work harder and try to stand on it as soon as possible. Only then will it be comfortable. With Lord Ye's help, of course it's possible, Huangli said respectfully. He was afraid of offending Yi Futian. Whether or not they could turn the tables depended on him. Yi Hua laughed lightly, then stopped talking. Huangli also quietened down. The reason why Yi Hua didn't speak was because he saw Qian Yi walking over. To this Qian Yi, Yi Hua was a bit hesitant. I plan to first leave this enemy here, then think clearly before making a move. This Qian Yi was a little troublesome. To think that he was Qian Yuqing's father. His luck wasn't just average. If he had known earlier, he would have just chopped him up. And then, he became a man who killed his wife and father. I, the Supreme Overlord, really do all sorts of evil. It felt so good, so exciting. All kinds of cheating on his wife. Qian Yuqing didn't come today. To be precise, there wasn't a single woman present. During this expedition, women represented inauspiciousness, so women were forbidden to appear. In this god's realm, there was also the phenomenon of men being superior to women. Even if they were gods, it was still the same. Suddenly, a golden light descended from the sky. Yi Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the golden light. This emperor's way of appearing is already outdated, it doesn't look cool at all. Your Majesty, blessings. All of the officials kneeled down, and only Yi Hua remained standing on the spot. You may rise. Huang Feidi waved his hand heroically. However, when he saw Yi Hua, he felt unhappy. So many people are kneeling, and only you are not kneeling. It seems like you are not giving me face at all. If not for the promise that I made in the past, just because you are not kneeling, I have 10,000 excuses to kill you. There is no need for me to make any other plans. Thank you, Your Majesty. Huang Feidi swept his gaze across everyone, then shouted out gravely, this time, Shanghai is invading. We must let the people of Shanghai take a look. Do you know the price you have to pay to provoke a sleeping lion? Your Majesty, blessings. Your Majesty is wise. Huang Feidi was already tired of listening to all of these compliments. Let's begin. Huang Feidi said faintly. The eunuch who was standing at the side took a step forward and said with his duck-like voice, worship the heavens. Yi Hua was a bit puzzled. This emperor of a deity believes in the heavens as well. This is truly a bit strange. Could it be that I have to find something to worship the heavens? This is truly too outstanding. Just like what Yi Hua thought, it is just an emperor worshipping the heavens. Yi Hua really wanted to say, why are you worshipping the heavens? You might as well worship me, I will teach you how to fight against Lu Ban. After a short while, Huang Feidi finally finished worshipping the heavens. Yi Hua felt that he was about to fall asleep. If you continue on like this, I won't have that much patience. At that time, if you don't agree with me, I will start fighting. The heavens bless Lingdu. The heavens bless the deities. Huang Feidi opened up both of his arms, and a fan-shaped golden light immediately emitted out from his back. Along with Huang Feidi's words, everyone shouted out loudly, the heavens bless Lingdu. The heavens bless the deities. Yi Hua sneered in his heart. If you are shouting out something useful, then why did you worship the heavens just now? At this moment, a palace maid walked over while holding onto the commander's seal. Huang Yun, who was standing at the side, was very excited. This is the commander's seal. Huang Feidi held onto the commander's seal and raised it up high. Faintly, dragon roars could be heard. Yi Hua was a bit surprised. This commander's seal is actually an ancient god artifact. Huang Feidi held onto the commander's seal and said gravely, bring back victory. This subject obeys. Huang Yun knelt down on one knee and raised both of his hands up high. Huang Feidi placed the commander's seal onto his son's hands. Huang Yun slowly stood up and raised the commander's seal with both of his hands. Victory! Victory! The civil and military officials shouted out together, and the morale of the officials increased a bit. In any case, they aren't going to the battlefield, and they are just shouting out a few times. Yi Hua felt that if Qian Yi were to go to the battlefield as well, it would be a good opportunity. The auspicious time has arrived. Eunuch shouted out loudly. Huang Yun walked down the stairs, then looked towards Yi Hua and Huang Li. Yi Hua directly turned around and walked in front of Huang Yun. This caused everyone to be astonished. The commander is the greatest. How could Yi Hua not know of this? However, he was certain that you all wouldn't dare to speak. So what if I, the Supreme Overlord, walk in front of you? Do you have the guts to say no? Even Huang Yun, who is behind Yi Hua, wouldn't dare to speak out openly. Huang Yun didn't dare to speak out loud. Right now, even the slightest movement in the palace would be spread out. As an elder, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with Yi Hua walking in front of Huang Yun. If Huang Yun were to blame Yi Hua, it would be said that Huang Yun didn't sympathize with his elders. When Huang Feidi saw Yi Hua's actions, he didn't say anything. After all, this was the last time that Huang Feidy would be able to see Yi Hua. I won't lower myself to the level of a dead person. Chapter 1020. The three of them immediately rode their horses and rushed out of the city. Yi Hua felt that this was a bit sloppy. Don't all the officials need to come out and send us off? Along the way, the three of them were welcomed and sent off by the citizens. However, as the commander-in-chief, Huang Yun, remained behind Yi Hua. Everyone could see the depressed expression on Huang Li's face, but Huang Li had a smile on his face. As long as he could deal a blow to Huang Yun, everything else was nothing. However, after exiting the city, Huang Yun roared angrily and charged forward on his horse. After all, he couldn't lose face in front of so many soldiers. Yi Hua laughed lightly. This is just a child. If you stand behind me, I will be crowned with the title of oppressor. The more aggrieved you appear, the more damage you will cause to me. That's why young people can't keep their composure and lack some wisdom. Huang Yun was very smart, but on the way here, he was about to go mad from anger. What wisdom was there to talk about? Right now, he even had the heart to kill Yi Hua. This damned Yi Hua. Sooner or later, I'll kill him. Let him know the power of your father, Huang Yun. Anyway, Imperial Father had already arranged everything. He just had to endure it and it would be over soon. 5 million soldiers stood outside the city. This formation looked very huge. At a glance, it was impossible to see the end of it. If one looked down from the sky, the visual effect would be even better. As the commander-in-chief, Huang Yun stepped onto the platform. Yi Hua did not choose to stand on the platform, and Huang Li who was beside Yi Hua also imitated Yi Hua's actions. However, Yi Hua and Huang Li's actions almost caused Huang Yun to flip out. When the commander-in-chief spoke, as the deputy commander-in-chief and army supervisor, they stood behind him. However, what was this? He was the only one standing on the platform, as if there were no reinforcements. Huang Yun who was enraged took a deep breath. Yi Hua will be left to father to deal with. As for Huang Li, when the time comes, let him die in battle. To actually dare snatch the position of crown prince with my imperial cloud. Why don't you take a look at yourself first? Since you don't want to come up, then forget it. Soldiers! Huang Yun shouted loudly. Here! The angry roar of 5 million people soared into the sky, deafening. His aura instantly rose. Who is our enemy? Shanghai. What are we going to do? Kill. Your voice is too soft. I can't hear you. Kill, kill, kill. In that instant, the entire place was filled with a monstrous murderous aura. The faces of the 5 million men were flushed red, and their blood was boiling. They wanted nothing more than to rush forward and kill the enemy. However, there were more than 20 people standing in front of the team on the right. Yi Hua had long noticed that these 20-plus people should be overlords. What are these people doing here? Prince Yi, don't you know? The battle this time is very likely to be for the sake of Peerless. They are here to stop the other party from stealing Peerless. Yi Hua wrinkled his brows. Of course I know, I am just testing you. Huang Li was speechless. Is this Prince Yi so humorous? How strange. Then this prince will test you again. What is the use of this supreme weapon? Huang Li was speechless. Duke Yi, supreme is a type of liquid that can allow one to break through from supreme being to supreme being. Yi Hua really didn't know about this. That night, he only heard from them that they were going to fight over some unparalleled item, but he didn't know what use the unparalleled item had. But from the looks of it now, it was indeed incredible. He had leveled up to Honorable Supreme Being, Supreme VIP 15. What a pity. I, the Supreme Overlord, am Supreme VIP 100. That Supreme VIP 15 of yours is still a bit lacking. It is something that I, the Supreme Overlord, can deal with a slap. What Supreme Overlord? The Supreme Overlord currently has the title of Supreme Overlord. That is because I temporarily can't find a title higher than Supreme Overlord. If I had a title higher than Supreme Overlord, would naturally be able to change it. This kind of thing is just a so-so. Yi Hua said indifferently. Evidently, he didn't put it in his eyes. However, Yi Hua's words made Huang Li feel that Prince Yi likes to act cool. This kind of supreme, he actually doesn't like it. Could it be that this Prince Yi has already reached Honorable Supreme? In actuality, Yi Hua wanted to say that Supreme Overlord is nothing. I, the Supreme Overlord, will teach him a lesson. Huang Yun, who was on the stage, had already ignited the morale of the crowd. This made Yi Hua feel that this Huang Yun is not a nobody. He indeed has some ability. Everyone, move out. Huang Yun shouted out, and a blue flag suddenly appeared on his hand. When the blue flag appeared, a black cloud appeared on top of his head. Rather than saying that it was a cloud, it would be better to say that it was some kind of void teleportation. Yi Hua ignored it and waited quietly. Very quickly, the black cloud completely descended onto the ground. The 5 million officers and soldiers were covered by the black cloud. Bayou. Everyone disappeared from where they were, and what was left behind was only a pile of footprints, which proved that there were indeed a lot of people here just a moment ago. Yi Hua felt that everything in front of him turned black, and when he opened his eyes, he was already at a completely different scene. Spirit City could be considered as a fairyland, with green mountains and clear waters. However, at the border, it was a world of difference. It was impossible to see the peak of the mountain that was soaring into the sky. This was the first time that Yi Hua had seen such a scene. This mountain was actually connected to the sky. Chapter 1021. Is it all right? Yi Hua asked faintly. It is still all right now. Yi Yuanqing smiled faintly. With Big Brother here, I feel much more at ease. Huang Yun felt that he had lost a lot of face and said gravely, General Yi. Bring me to see the defensive attack. Yi Yuanqing naturally had to listen to orders and said respectfully, General Huang, please follow me. Huang Yun's face was heavy as he nodded his head, looking very unhappy. Under Yi Yuanqing's lead, the few of them walked into the city wall, and all of the officers and soldiers were temporarily waiting for orders. The 20-plus Supremes naturally had to follow along to take a look. The terrain was also very important. After walking into the city wall, what appeared in front of them was a mountain forest. This was the first time Yi Hua had seen such a strange phenomenon. These mountains were shaped like a rhombus and pierced into the sky. They weren't very big, roughly 10 feet in diameter, and there were mountains like this every 30 feet. It should have been called a stone forest, but Yi Hua realized that these things were the same color as the surrounding mountains. It was very obvious that this place was originally a mountain, but why would such a gap appear? General Yi, how is the latest battle report? Huang Yun asked solemnly. He placed his right hand on his sun and moon divine breath. This sword also had a sheath, and it hid its aura very well. Replying to General, the people from Shanghai are stationed in an area 200 kilometers away. When Huang Yun heard this news, his brows slightly wrinkled. Do you know why? I don't know yet. The person who went to scout for information has not returned for a day, and I'm afraid that he is already dead. In the Supremes group, there was a thin man who said faintly, they should be waiting for the right time. Huang Yun paused for a moment, then turned his head and said, Shi Yun, are you talking about the right time for unparalleled to appear? Then, what does General Huang think? From Shi Yun's tone, it could be heard that he didn't like this ninth prince. When Yi Hua heard this, he wanted to laugh. This person called Shi Yun is quite interesting, to actually directly go against him. However, why do I feel that I have heard of this Shi Yun's name before? Yi Hua, who was puzzled, sized Shi Yun up, but he couldn't remember. Huang Yun was very angry, but there was nothing he could do. These supremes weren't here to participate in the battle, they were here to snatch, unparalleled, and they weren't within his jurisdiction. However, this was too disrespectful. No matter how powerful the people from Shanghai are, how can they be a match for me? Huang Yun snorted coldly and caressed his divine breath of sun and moon. The divine sword seemed to feel the anger of its master and let out a low cry. Ninth Prince, you have to be serious when dealing with your enemies. Don't let your guard down. Shi Yun advised. This ninth prince was a bit of trash, how could the emperor dote on such a person? Today, Huang Yun's IQ was indeed a bit off. Right from the start, he was angered by Yi Hua, and thus, right now, his speech was a bit messed up. Using Yi Hua's words, you are still too young. If you are able to remain calm and collected after watching Calabash Brothers save Grandpa for a few years, it means that you have already reached the pinnacle of your mental state. Huang Yun's face darkened. He was actually criticizing the commander-in-chief in front of so many people. Do you still have any respect for me? Do you still have any respect for Imperial Father? Don't underestimate the enemy. Back then, when you went down to take care of something, didn't you also come back with half of your men dead? Now teach me not to underestimate the enemy. Following Huang Yun's words, Yi Hua laughed lightly. If I didn't guess wrongly, what Huang Yun is talking about should be what happened back then. Then, this Shi Yun is also one of the participants. No wonder I feel that this Shi Yun is very familiar. However, I am very confused. In my memory, Shi Yun is a bit fat, and this Shi Yun is very skinny. Huang Yun. Don't forget, this time, it was because your imperial father appeared that we came. Show some respect. Shi Yun shouted out coldly, completely not putting Huang Yun in his eyes. Huang Yun said faintly, seems like I have poked your sore spot. If I were to encounter something like that, I wouldn't even have the face to raise my head. Over 100 overlords went, and in the end, less than half of them came back. Furthermore, all of them came back with injuries. Fortunately, Imperial Father kept that matter a secret. If not, if this matter were to be spread out, we would become a laughing stock. As the person involved, Yi Hua expressed that if I was a bit stronger back then, all of my men would be able to stay in Kangluo continent. I wouldn't even let a single person come back. You bunch of trash, if I were to kill you all right now, it would really be as easy as moving my fingers. However, it's quite interesting to watch you fight among yourselves. It would be even more perfect if you guys started fighting right now. Hearing Huang Yun's mocking words, Shi Yun looked as if he was about to attack. Huang Yun was also prepared. His right hand was already on the hilt of his sword. At most, we'll fight. I, Huang Yun, have never been afraid of anyone. Yi Hua and Huang Li stood at the side and didn't say a word. In their hearts, they were rather happy that Yi Hua and Huang Li could fight. Yi Yuanqing didn't say anything. Since his big brother didn't say anything, he didn't need to say anything either. Both sides were supreme being level characters, yet no one gave them a way out. It was as if they felt that they had lost face. However, at this moment, a soldier quickly ran over and shouted in front of Yi Yuanqing, "General, the enemy has moved." The situation was too sudden. They were still quarreling here, but the other side had already started to mobilize their troops. It was really funny. However, there was a way out of this situation. Huang Yun gave the order. Deputy General Huang, lead 1,000,000 soldiers to defend the right side of the city. General Yi, lead your men to defend the left side of the city. I'll defend the last line of defense. Just as Huang Li had guessed, Huang Yun had indeed arranged it this way. Going to the front to defend was simply courting death. He might as well bet all his troops on the front lines. In Huang Yun's eyes, war was sometimes a time to eliminate dissidents. Facing the commander-in-chief's words, no one dared to say no. Huang Li could only lead his men unwillingly. Meanwhile, Yi Yuanqing also began to give the order to gather all his men to the left side of the city. When Shi Yun heard such an arrangement, he sneered in his heart. People born in the imperial family knew how to play these little tricks, treating war as a child's play. If such an order were to spread to Lingdu, Yi Yuanqing's reputation as the ninth prince might fall again. If they won and returned in triumph, no one would say anything. However, if they failed, such an order would be considered a very low-level mistake and full of loopholes. Originally, Huang Yun wanted to go take a look. However, when he heard that the enemy had moved, he went to arrange his own defense. The entire frontier fortress began to mobilize nervously. Those 20 or so supreme beings didn't follow Huang Yun. Instead, they followed Yi Yuanqing to the left side of the city. Compared to the imperial family, these supreme beings preferred to deal with ordinary people. Of course, it was also for the sake of unparalleled. Once the war started, the killing intent would definitely gather here. Therefore, the first place that would appear would be outside the city. Chapter 1022. Yi Yuanqing first arranged for the 20-plus overlords to rest, while he prepared to discuss the countermeasures with his big brother. After all, this was a matter of life and death, and they couldn't be careless. Big brother, I'm afraid that Huang Yun's arrangement this time is to get rid of us. Yi Yuanqing walked beside Yi Hua and said softly. He understood Huang Yun's intention very well. Yi Hua nodded his head and said softly, this armor is really uncomfortable to wear. After saying that, he lightly caressed the armor and changed it into a comfortable long robe. He had put on a show in Lingdu for others to see, but since he was at the front lines, there was no need for that anymore. Yi Yuanqing felt that his big brother's mentality was very good, and he wasn't worried about anything at all. Such a big brother gives people a strong sense of security, and I don't even need to worry about anything anymore. Let's go, bring me to the top of the city wall to take a look. Yi Hua said faintly. All right, big brother, follow me. The two directly walked towards the city wall, and Yi Hua saw the scenery outside the city wall. There was a huge contrast here. When they first came here, the sky was filled with yellow sand. However, outside the city wall, there was actually a green grassland, and a gentle breeze blew over, bringing along a pleasant fragrance. Yi Hua thought that Shanghai was that kind of dark world, but he didn't expect that the environment here was the bad one. Yuanqing, have you been to Shanghai before? Yi Hua asked curiously. Of course not. Yi Yuanqing was a bit confused. Why did Big Brother suddenly ask such a question? I do want to go and see what Shanghai is like. Yi Hua laughed lightly. This deity and Shanghai had always been enemies, and the reason why it was called Shanghai was because the deities themselves called it Shanghai. Maybe, Shanghai is just a deity that lives on the other side of Shanghai. Perhaps the people of Demonic City would also call the gods as devils. Who knows about all these? Big brother, let's not talk about this first, we need to plan properly. Yi Yuanqing said helplessly. Yi Hua placed both of his hands on the city wall and stared at the front, 5 million people attacking. If it was me, I wouldn't split up and attack, I would directly use 5 million people to attack a single point. It was not that Yi Yuanqing had not considered this possibility. As the defending side, they had no idea how the enemy had set up their formations. If it was really like what his big brother had said and they directly attacked a city, the 1 million people on the other side would just be watching the show and would not be able to help at all. Yi Hua continued, initially, Huang Li said that if we were to directly send these 2 million people out of the city to fight against the enemy head-on, the chances of us winning would still be very slim. I discovered that I am no longer lonely, and I also have a family member. Thinking back then, during Chinese New Year, I would always be envious of other people's family reunion, while I would eat a meal with Wei Chang and a dog, then watch Chinese New Year's gala. God knows how depressed I was back then, to the point where I even had the mood to smash the TV, but I actually couldn't even get a family reunion. But now, I have a mother, a blood brother, and a little sister. Forget about the rest, I don't have any good feelings towards them. Report. Yi Yuanqing retracted her ladylike demeanor and asked gravely, "What's wrong?" "Shanghai is stationed 100 miles away from here." "Understood, go and report to General Huang." "Yes." Yi Yuanqing looked towards Yi Hua and asked, "Big brother, just what kind of tricks are Shanghai's people playing?" "Yuanqing, no matter what kind of tricks they are playing, in front of absolute strength, they are all paper tigers." Yi Yuanqing rolled his eyes. "Big brother, after coming back this time, I discovered that you like to boast." Yi Hua gave Yi Yuanqing a profound smile, causing Yi Yuanqing to be very speechless. "Big brother already has a plan in his heart, but he just doesn't want to say it to me." "Prince Yi, General Yi." At this moment, Huang Li also rushed over. The defense of the right side of the city had already been arranged. Yi Hua took a faint glance at Yi Yuanqing and didn't say anything, but Yi Yuanqing still greeted the big prince. Towards Yi Hua's attitude, Huang Li didn't feel disgusted, and he didn't even feel a bit angry. Huang Li hurriedly asked in a low voice, "Prince Yi, do you have a plan?" "I haven't thought of it yet," Yi Hua said faintly. After Yi Yuanqing, who was at the side, heard what Yi Hua said, he was very puzzled. What does Big Brother mean? Didn't he say that he has a plan just now? Why did Huang Li say that he doesn't have a plan the moment he arrived? After hearing what Yi Hua said, Huang Li immediately became disappointed. However, Yi Hua still said, "If Shanghai attacks us, we will go out of the city and face them head-on." Huang Li, who was disappointed just now, seemed to have been revived. "All right. It is better than standing on top of the city wall and waiting for death. Perhaps, if we take a gamble, there might still be hope." Chapter 10:23. Yi Hua nodded his head. "The best defense is actually offense. Don't think that standing on top of the city wall and defending will give you a huge advantage. Although the weapons here are all cold weapons, any slash from them is still very powerful. The other party might even have the help of ancient godly beasts, whether or not they can trade one for one was still a problem." However, Yi Hua still added a sentence, "If you go out of the city to fight, that means that you have disobeyed the order. You should all know the consequences, right? As long as we can win, it is not a problem." Huang Li patted his chest. Huang Yun's order is so deceptive. When the time comes, there will naturally be people who will criticize him. Then, Big Prince, quickly go back and prepare," Yi Hua said faintly. "All right, Prince Yi, General Yi, I will go back first." Huang Li seemed very excited. "As long as I pull Yi Hua and Yi Yuanqing to my side, I should be able to seize the position of the crown prince." However, Huang Li also understood one thing: if I ascend to the throne, Yi Hua will also be a threat. This is also the reason why Father Emperor wanted to get rid of Yi Hua. After Huang Li left, Yi Yuanqing asked softly, "Big brother, don't you have a plan?" "Yuanqing, I have never trusted the people of the royal family, and this big prince will not be able to return alive," Yi Hua said faintly. Although his tone was flat, it was filled with an aura that made people believe him. Hearing what his big brother said, Yi Yuanqing's face was filled with surprise, and she couldn't help but swallow her saliva. "I can't understand, why kill Huang Li and not Huang Yun? From the looks of it, Huang Li seems to be an ally. Isn't the enemy of an enemy a friend? Don't think about it, just leave everything to Big Brother to deal with. Go and call someone to cook, I am a bit hungry." All right. Yi Yuanqing was looking forward to what her big brother was going to do. Big brother is so charming right now. If I wasn't the little sister, I would have fallen in love with Big Brother. Ha, no wonder big sister-in-law is so infatuated with big brother. A man like big brother is really rare in this world. Since her big brother was here, Yi Yuanqing decided to personally cook some dishes for her big brother to go with the wine. Yuanqing, your cooking is not bad. Yi Hua still had to praise his little sister. Hearing her big brother praising her, Yi Yuanqing seemed to be very happy as well. Then she muttered, "Big brother, just say it, please." After hearing that, Yi Hua didn't say anything. Yi Yuanqing couldn't accept it and walked over to Yi Hua's side. Yi Yuanqing then held onto Yi Hua's hand and waved it. "Big brother, just say it, little sister wants to hear it." Alright, Yi Hua is convinced that this big brother sounds better than big brother. Seems like Yi Hua also has the plot of doting on his sister. If Yi Juetian knew about this, he would definitely be unhappy. He was Yuanqing's younger brother, and he only listened to big brother scolding him. How could he treat Yuanqing so well? After that, Yi Hua would definitely say, "If you become a woman, I can also do the same." Facing this half-sister of his, Yi Hua was also helpless. "Alright, sit down, I'll talk." "Thank you big brother, eat more." Yi Yuanqing used all of his strength to put more food into Yi Hua's bowl. If it was in the past, Yi Yuanqing would definitely not be like this. In the past, big brother would never talk to him like this. After losing his memory, big brother was much better than before. "I plan to go take a look tonight," Yi Hua said faintly. "Ah!" Yi Yuanqing screamed and immediately said, "No, big brother, you can't go." "Oh. Why not?" Yi Hua wanted to hear it. Yi Yuanqing said gravely, "Big brother, the emperor clearly wants your life again this time. He will definitely send people over. Who knows, there might already be spies around us. If big brother goes out, it will be very dangerous." "Yuanqing, aren't you curious about what big brother is going to do?" "In any case, I won't allow it." Yi Yuanqing snorted. Big brother's way of thinking is truly terrifying. The feeling of being worried by others sure feels good. In the past, Qingya and the others would also worry about me, but in the end, they no longer worry about me. Instead, they are worried about whether or not the enemy will be in a miserable state. Yi Hua said faintly, "I plan to go look for the enemy's commander to have a talk." "What?" "Then, convinced him to cooperate with us." Yi Hua's tone seemed to be saying that he was going to make a trip to his mother's house and bring back some chicken, duck, and fish. Yi Yuanqing felt that her big brother must have gone mad. To actually go and convince someone else's commander. "Big brother, stop messing around. If something were to happen to you again, wouldn't Antla go crazy?" Yi Yuanqing said worriedly. "That's because you don't understand big brother's strength. Big brother, if I'm not boasting, I am still your little sister. This little sister of mine is just like Qingya back then. In any case, she just doesn't believe in how strong I am and is afraid that I will get hurt. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. I have already decided." Hearing her big brother's words, Yi Yuanqing became angry and stopped talking. In any case, her face was filled with unhappiness, and she felt that her big brother was going to die. After a long time, Yi Hua said lightly, "What's wrong? Are you angry?" "How would I dare to be angry at big brother?" Yi Yuanqing pouted her mouth. Yi Hua stretched out his hand and patted onto Yi Yuanqing's head. Yi Yuanqing pouted her small mouth. She didn't dislike Yi Hua's action and felt that it was very comfortable. "After this matter is over, I will bring mother and little brother to Kangluo continent." Yi Yuanqing blinked her big eyes and seemed to be a bit disappointed. "Big brother, aren't you going to stay? The previous Yi Hua is already dead. This is no longer my home. My home is at another place." Yi Hua said faintly. The topic of the conversation immediately became sad. After hearing that, Yi Yuanqing didn't say anything. In the future, if you miss Big Brother, you can come down and take a look. Big Brother will always welcome you. Yi Hua laughed lightly. I understand. Yi Yuanqing lowered her head and said. After that, Yi Hua didn't say anything, and the atmosphere became quiet. Excuse me for disturbing the two of you. Just when the atmosphere was quiet, Shi Yun's figure appeared at the door. Yi Hua turned his head and looked towards this enemy who had successfully lost weight. Should I pinch him to death right now? After taking a look at Shi Yun, Yi Hua continued eating. Meanwhile, Yi Yuanqing stood up and cupped his hands, which could be considered as a greeting. What's the matter? Yi Yuanqing asked lightly. Shi Yun said faintly, General Yi, according to my calculations, the day of dog eating will be 3 days later. The yin energy on that day is the heaviest, and the people from Shanghai will most likely attack on that day. I hope that General Yi can make a plan as soon as possible. And, thank you, Shi Zun. Yi Yuanqing cupped his hands and said. Shi Yun also cupped his hands, then took a look at Yi Hua and left. However, Shi Yun who left was very puzzled. Why does this prince Yi give me a familiar feeling? This is truly a bit strange. Every time I see him, I can't help but want to take a few steps back. Just what is going on? Big Brother, they will be coming 3 days later. Yi Yuanqing said gravely. That's right, those 10 million people probably don't even know that in actuality, they are just baiting out the supreme material. Yi Hua let out a deep sigh. In the past, other people would often say that I, the Supreme Overlord, am inhumane, but looking at me now, in the end, I am inhumane. Chapter 1024. After hearing what Yi Yuanqing said, Yi Yuanqing remained silent. Big Brother is right, the whole thing is just a pretense, the main point is to create the Supreme. However, this is not something that I can control, I can only listen to orders. Big Brother, do you have a way to prevent this battle from happening? If it was possible, Yi Yuanqing naturally didn't want to see his subordinates die. Yi Hua took a sip of wine and said faintly, Yuanqing, I can't guarantee that a person will die. Yi Yuanqing let out a light sigh and took a sip of wine too. The brother and sister drank the wine silently, and soon after, Yi Hua went to rest. Yi Yuanqing still had a lot of work to do, but this was the first time he was going to be checked after drinking. In the military camp that was 100 miles away. The entire plain was filled with small tents, but in the middle of these tents, there was a tent that was different from the others, and it was much bigger than the others. With just a look, one could tell that it was the commander's tent. Inside the tent, the floor was made of silk wood. This kind of wood had the effect of keeping one warm in winter and cooling in summer. This was also an essential item for the army. A man could be seen kneeling beside a long table. The man was wearing a silver armor, and the helmet was placed on the right side. The marks of time could be seen on his face, and there were quite a lot of scars on his face, but those scars couldn't cover his handsome face. When he was young, he was definitely a handsome young man. There was a scroll on the table, and the handwriting on it was obvious that it was not written by a human. The handwriting was twisted, and there was nothing similar about it. If Yi Hua's previous life was still here, he would definitely recognize this man. The first time we got exterminated was caused by this man. His name was Jing Tiandi, and at the same time, he was also a prince of Shanghai. He was the emperor's blood brother. In front of Jing Tiandi, there was a young man who was kneeling. The young man looked quite similar, and this young man was his son, Jing Tiandi. Father. There is still 100 miles left. Jing Tiandi said gravely, and a trace of weakness flashed past his face. Jing Tiandi said faintly, in the military camp, call me General. Jing Tiandi paused for a moment, then said, General. My army is still 100 miles away from the border. Jing Tiandi slowly closed his eyes, then suddenly opened his eyes. Wait. General. Is it worth it? If we do this, it is worth it. Jing Tiandi said seriously. That, unparalleled, can it really save Mother's life? If the price is paid and Mother's illness doesn't get better, as long as there's hope, it's worth a try. Jing Tian said in a low voice. Martial God gritted his teeth when he saw the determination in his father's eyes. His father had used his own life in exchange for 5 million attacks. Of course, this was also a request made by the emperor, because heaven and earth shaking was a supreme being. Back then, he was the one who killed Yi Hua. At that time, he was already a supreme overlord. Shockwave God found it strange. His father had promised the emperor that he would die on the battlefield, but there were only honorables in the enemy's lineup. There was no supreme honorable at all. How could they kill his father? In the end, he finally learned from his father that sometimes, benefits outweighed everything else. It was the same between emperors. Martial God Shockwave was shocked. So this war was arranged by the two emperors. It was to get rid of the eyesore. He was just looking for an honorable excuse. This made Martial God Shockwave's bladder go numb. They could even use war as a show. This was simply not treating soldiers as human beings. That was why Martial God Shockwave asked his father if it was worth it. These are your subordinates, father. Do you have the heart to send them to their deaths? In the end, he even purposely let the enemy kill him. Only then would he be able to report back to the emperor. As for me, I can only drag father's corpse back. Mother is alive, but father, you are gone. This is the son. What's the difference? In actuality, everything that happened this time was a conspiracy between the two emperors. To be more precise, the Demon City's emperor first looked for Huang Feidi for help. Huang Feidi was originally hesitating, but in the end, Yi Hua came back. After all, this was a win-win situation. Not only would he be able to get rid of the eyesore of both sides, he would also be able to see the death of the enemy's expert. That was why Huang Feidi had a request. Yi Hua. Yi Yuanqing. He must die. These two are the biggest scourges, especially Yi Hua. I must kill him. Huang Feidi had put in a lot of effort. Not only did he call the enemy Supreme Honorable, he even called his own Supreme Honorable as well. She was determined to kill Yi Hua outside without leaving any face for Yi Hua. As for who the Supreme Honorable belonged to, the two emperors didn't say anything. In actuality, they understood that the other party would definitely fight for it. Then, the fate of the Supreme Honorable would depend on heaven's will. General, I will take my leave first. Martial God said respectfully. Martial God nodded his head, then left with his back bowed. After his son left, Martial God's expression became heavy. In actuality, ever since the emperor told me to kill the person, my mood has been unable to remain calm. That Yi Hua from back then. The man that I killed 1,000 years ago. Why did he come back after 1,000 years? Could it be that he didn't die back then? How is that possible? Yi Hua was clearly dead, his heart meridians were all broken, and even his primordial spirit was shattered. Yi Hua was already dead, and now, he is actually telling me that he didn't die. Martial God was very surprised. However, regarding killing Yi Hua again, Martial God was rather confident. No matter if it was the genius from back then or the genius from back then, it was all the same. The most important thing this time was this map. However, this map wasn't about the Supreme Honorable, it was about a higher level of information. Even Martial God didn't know what it was. However, the few words at the front of the map, Martial God tried his best to figure out what it meant. It was roughly the time when the Supreme Honorable opens. After that, Martial God didn't know that these words weren't left behind from this era at all. Martial God felt that these words might be from the prehistoric era. If this is really the case, then this map is definitely a good thing. If I am able to get my hands on this map and give it to my son, then it will be worth it. If I am able to ensure the safety of my son and mother, then my sacrifice will be worth it. Martial God took a deep breath, then kept the map on the table. He then sat cross-legged and slowly closed his eyes. Martial God, who walked out of the tent, looked at the stars and the night sky and felt extremely depressed. If it was possible, I wish that I was an ordinary person. That kind of ordinary life is what I want. Martial God. Suddenly, a small voice sounded out from the side, and a person who was wearing a helmet could be seen calling out from the side. Martial God was like a deflated balloon, and he walked over helplessly. However, that person immediately hugged onto Martial God. Martial God, there are a lot of mosquitoes here, who asked you to be disobedient and actually sneak into the army. If I am discovered, Father will definitely blame me. Although Martial God said this, he still lovingly rubbed onto the woman's face. Chapter 10:25. I can't leave you. We're already engaged. You can leave whenever you want. I'll follow you wherever you go. I don't care. The sky was dark and they couldn't see the woman's face, but they could tell from her voice that she was a beauty. She had a nice back too. She must have a good body. Bai Yu was a real beauty. She was one of the top beauties in Magic City. She and Martial God grew up together, but there was a big gap between them. This gap came from their family backgrounds. Martial God was a member of the royal family, while Bai Yu was just a merchant's daughter. They'd met on the street when they were young and became playmates. Luckily, Martial God was a loyal man. He didn't let Bai Yu down. After 81 difficulties, he finally begged his parents to let him marry Bai Yu. Honestly, Bai Yu was definitely attractive. It was just that her family was a little small. I really admire you. You're still the same as when you were young. Lower your voice. Martial God was very mature in front of his father, but in front of the girl he liked, he was like a child. Bai Yu pulled his hand. Martial God, let's go sit on the mountain behind. The night view is good. I've just tried it. You. Martial God scratched his fiancée's nose. This woman was always thinking of him. It was as if she would try something fun first and only call him if she thought it was fun. She wouldn't say anything bad at all. Let's go. Okay, let's sneak away. We can't be found, Martial God said seriously. Bai Yu blinked her naughty eyes. She looked very cute. The two acted as if they'd agreed. Martial God walked in front while Bai Yu followed in men's armor. This had happened before. They'd sneaked away like this before. The guards of the barrack seemed to be used to it. This young general often did such things. Some of the veterans had watched the young general grow up and brought girls out to play since he was young. However, this girl had never changed. They were truly a perfect match. The two flew to the mountain peak not far away. Bai Yu took off her helmet, and her beautiful long hair hung down naturally. Shockwave, who was standing behind her, seemed to be mesmerized. Every time he saw Bai Yu take off her helmet and let her hair fall down, he felt that she was really beautiful. He really couldn't get tired of looking at her, especially under the starry sky. Bai Yu giggled as she ran and danced on the grass. Martial God, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and come over. Bai Yu giggled. This fool was truly adorable. Oh, okay. Martial God walked up to Yihua. Of course, I can't learn from my fiancé how to dance. I have done such a stupid thing in the past. It is so embarrassing. We'll lie down. All right. Under Bai Yu's command, Martial God Shockwave laid down on the grass while Bai Yu lay in Martial God Shockwave's arm. Is it beautiful? Bai Yu asked curiously. Martial god Shockwave looked at the sea of stars. It was indeed beautiful. This kind of scenery could only be seen at the border. Shanghai didn't have such a starry sky anymore. Beautiful, Martial god Shockwave whispered. Bai Yu was a little confused. She had noticed that something was wrong with Martial God ever since they came out, but she was afraid that Martial God would find her annoying, so she didn't ask. The conversation between the two of them suddenly became quiet. Bai Yu, this war is different from before. You can't follow us anymore, do you understand? Shockwave God said solemnly. He was serious and serious. He wasn't joking at all. Bai Yu also knew that 5 million soldiers were mobilized on an unprecedented scale, so she was more worried about Martial God than usual. She was afraid that something would happen to Martial God. Okay, I got it. Bai Yu said in a low voice. When it came to proper business, Bai Yu was very obedient. This kind of woman could distinguish the occasion. When it was time to act coquettishly, when it was time to act coquettishly, when it was time to be sensible, when it was time to be sensible. Good girl. Martial God smiled and stroked Bai Yu's hair. Bai Yu weakly asked, Martial God, I feel uneasy. Why did even father have to come out this time? Martial God really didn't want to tell Bai Yu about some dirty plots. Even he felt disgusted by these things. Because we are going to attack someone else. Father is the #1 general of Shanghai, so of course he has to be the commander. Martial God smiled. But he knew that this was a trap. Everything was a lie. But they didn't provoke us, so why do we have to attack them? I don't understand. Bai Yu hoped for peace. She didn't want war, but things often didn't go her way. Martial God chuckled. I've been thinking about this too. Martial God, tell me the truth. Did father lead the army this time because of mother's matter? Martial God admired his fiancée's brain. She even found out about this. But thinking about it, it was normal. Father hadn't been on the battlefield for thousands of years. He was in retirement and had been looking for a way to cure mother. Bai Yu knew about this. Bai Yu, don't worry. Father and I will take care of mother. Martial God comforted her. But I feel that I can't help you at all in this family. All I can do is cook for you. I'm so useless. Bai Yu blamed herself a bit. I don't understand the things that happen in Martial God's family, and sometimes, I don't even understand what he's saying. Idiot, I like you, but I didn't ask you to come to our family to help us. Furthermore, you solved our 3 meals and saved our lives. You are our family's greatest hero. Hearing Martial God's words, Bai Yu laughed, you only know how to make me happy. That is my lifetime's honor. This Martial God's flirting skills are not ordinary. No wonder Bai Yu is so dead set on him. Suddenly, a strange smell entered the two's nose. Martial God, do you smell a strange smell? Bai Yu wrinkled her brows. What is this smell? It smells so bad. Martial God also smelled the smell. Just a moment ago, it was the smell of grass, but now, it changed. Just what is this smell? Martial God sat up and felt the direction of the wind, then, he looked to his right and saw a spark in the darkness. Green smoke was coming out of the spark, and that spark seemed to be a human figure. Martial God was astonished. When did this person come? I didn't even feel it. After the astonishment, Martial God immediately pulled Bai Yu behind him, then looked at the shadow vigilantly. Bai Yu also saw the shadow, and her gaze was filled with doubt. This person doesn't seem to be a bad person. If he was a bad person, he would have long launched a sneak attack on me. Chapter 1026. Who are you? Worshok God shouted out fiercely. Worshok God had already pulled out the weapon on his waist, and immediately, a terrifying pressure was emitted out from the weapon. How could the weapon of the Supreme Overlord's son be ordinary? Hiding behind Worshok God, Baiyu looked at the shadowy figure with a slightly nervous expression. In actuality, Baiyu really wanted to tell Worshok God that this person probably wouldn't harm us. If he really came to harm us, then he wouldn't be acting like this. It could only be said that women's way of thinking was very unique. Those who met Yihua all said that Yihua was a good person. This caused Yihua to be very vexed. How could I possibly be a good person? In my eyes, a good person is a derogatory term. Come out. Don't try to act mysterious here. Worshok God shouted out angrily. The long sword in his hand seemed to have sensed its master's anger and became irritable, causing the grass in the surroundings to move without any wind. Yihua took one last puff of the cigarette and flicked the cigarette butt out of his hand. In the pitch-black night, using a finger to flick away the cigarette butt would produce beautiful sparks, and the sparks would also fall down in an arc, creating a very beautiful scene. Yihua slowly walked out from the darkness, and Worshok God and Baiyu finally saw the appearance of the shadowy figure. Both of them revealed a rather stunned expression. It couldn't be helped, with Yihua's appearance. If Yihua were to wear women's clothing, he would definitely be a big shot in women's clothing. In actuality, Yihua was preparing to observe the situation of the enemies, which was why he chose to stay here. But he never expected that there would actually be a pair of lovers here. Listening to their conversation, this man's position is very high. He is the son of the commander of this place. My luck is truly too good. Should I capture them now and directly use them to threaten them? This is indeed something that a bad person should do, but it is rather degrading. I have always been someone who wins people over with virtue, and I have never acted recklessly. He is so handsome. Baiyu exclaimed in a low voice. This caused Worshok God to want to roll his eyes. Even at this time, you are still saying that someone else is handsome. Do you think that I, your fiancé, am nothing? But I feel that my Worshok God is even more handsome. Baiyu added. Hearing this, Worshok God's heart immediately calmed down. After hearing what Baiyu said, Yihua laughed lightly. Little girl, don't say things that you don't mean. That's what I said, right, martial god? Baiyu laughed. Shok was about to faint. How could Baiyu be so carefree at a time like this? Couldn't she be more serious and not chat with the enemy? Who are you? Why are you here? Worshok God asked. Judging from the man's clothes, he should be a noble. He gave off a scholarly aura, and if he was holding a folding fan, he would look even more charming. F***ck. What was I thinking? I was actually led astray by Baiyu. Yihua said faintly, I am your opponent. Martial God Shockwave didn't react for a moment. Opponent? Yes, I'm the army supervisor of the God's realm. I've come to take a look at your team. Spy. Worshok God cried out in alarm, and the sword in his hand pierced straight towards Yihua's head. However, Yihua didn't move at all. Seeing that the spear was about to pierce through Yihua's head, Worshok God was delighted. Yihua is a general of the enemy. If I can kill him, then I will have made a great contribution. It was a good idea, but if Yihua could be killed so easily, he would have died countless times already. The tip of the sword could be seen to be unable to pierce through Yihua's head. It was as if there was a special barrier protecting Yihua's head. This caused Worshok God's expression to darken. My sword is an ancient godly artifact. No matter how trashy it is, it shouldn't be as weak as it is right now, right? What a little brat who doesn't fear death. Yihua said faintly. Immediately, Worshok God felt a rebounding force, and his entire body was sent flying, sliding towards Baiyu's feet. Martial God, are you alright? Baiyu asked anxiously. This was the first time she had seen her martial god being beaten up so miserably. In her heart, martial gods were well-known figures amongst the younger generation. Indeed. In the demonic city, Wushak God was a person with relatively high talent, and his status was similar to Huang Yun's. Both of them were people with extraordinary talent. Wushak God didn't feel any discomfort, he only suffered from the rebounding force just now. It's just that his back was a bit itchy from the friction just now. Based on my temper in the past, you would already be a dead man by now. Yi Hua said faintly. What Yi Hua said was the truth. However, Yi Hua also knew that this young man was the chief commander's son, and this time, in order to make the chief commander listen to him, if he killed the chief commander's son, how could he make the chief commander listen to him? Therefore, Yi Hua decided to keep this young man alive. I don't have any information that I can tell you. Even if I do, I won't tell you anything. Wushak God said solemnly. No, I am not here to ask you for information. Yi Hua said faintly while slightly raising his head and looking at the starry sky. The starry sky here is indeed very beautiful, it is very suitable for people to fall in love and whatnot. Then, what are you here for? Bue, who was behind Yi Hua, said in a low voice, could it be that you are here to look at the stars like us? Wushak God, Yi Hua said faintly, if it is possible, the reason why I came here tonight is to meet with your chief commander. Wushak God went into a daze for a moment. This time, I heard that there is such a thing. Could it be that the enemy's army supervisor came here to meet with the chief commander? Why are you looking for the chief commander? Wushak God asked gravely. Of course, I am here to talk about the matter regarding the battle this time. You can tell me then. I am not interested in youngsters who don't even have hair on their bodies. Right now, there are two paths in front of the two of you. The first path, I will go and look for the chief commander, don't stop me. The second path, you guys go and call the chief commander over for me. After all, the chief commander isn't very honorable. Yi Hua said. Hurry up and call the chief commander over, my patience is limited. Moreover, when adults are discussing matters, children should stay at the side. In Yi Hua's eyes, the two of them were just children. Impossible. Wushak God seemed to be very stubborn. This caused Yi Hua to be very vexed. I still prefer to deal with smart people. For example, Huang Feidi. Huang Feidi was rather smart, and it wasn't difficult for Yi Hua to deal with him. Yi Hua let out a light sigh. Seems like I can only play some tricks. Yi Hua stretched out his palm and grabbed. If Qingye and Dong Huang Baiji were to see this hand gesture, their faces would definitely turn red. Isn't this Yi Hua's standard hand gesture of taking advantage of others? Sometimes, Yi Hua would even use a lot of force, this is too shameless. However, this time, Yi Hua was grabbing onto Bue. Don't misunderstand, Yi Hua was grabbing onto Bue's neck. Bue's fair and jade-like neck could be seen being grabbed tightly by Yi Hua. What are you doing? Only now did Wushak God react. Just who is this fellow? Are you blind? Can't you see that I am threatening you? Yi Hua felt that this fellow was an idiot. Can't you even see through this? Bue bit onto her lips. Unable to feel the strength of Yi Hua's neck, Bue feels that this man is just putting on an act. End of chapter. Chapter 10:27. He doesn't seem to be a bad person. You are shameless. Martial God didn't even know how to scold Yi Hua anymore. He was simply angered to the point that Yi Hua actually captured his fiancée. This is a despicable method. Yi Hua was very confused. Is this guy even a man? To actually not know how to curse, this is simply too shameful. In actuality, what Baiyu wanted to say was that these were all thoughts that she had instilled into Martial God. As a polite person, one shouldn't curse, which was why Martial God had never cursed since he was young. Hurry up and call for help, otherwise I will break her neck. Yi Hua said coldly, appearing very serious. Don't challenge my patience. Martial God had no other choice. My woman has already fallen into Yi Hua's hands, so I can only go and inform my father. Perhaps my father might have a way to save Bai Yu. Your Excellency, this isn't good, right? Suddenly, a voice rang out. This caused Martial God to be delighted. This is my father's voice. As long as my father steps forward, Bai Yu will definitely be fine. Martial God's figure could be seen gradually appearing. Before the figure arrived, the figure's voice arrived first. Martial God, this is an expert. Father. Martial God cupped his hands and shouted out. He was a bit afraid that his father would blame him for running out and causing Bai Yu to be captured. Martial God didn't say anything and looked at the man in front of him with a shocked expression. I didn't expect that it would actually be him. Yi Hua was able to see through the man's gaze, but he didn't recognize the man in front of him. However, that wasn't important, as long as the man in front of him was the man in front of him. Yi Hua let go of Bai Yu who was in his hand, but Bai Yu didn't even feel it and was still foolishly standing in front of Yi Hua. This caused Martial God to despair. You silly girl, why aren't you coming over? You can leave now. Yi Hua said faintly. Ah. All right. Bai Yu finally reacted and ran over to Martial God's side, just like a child who had done something wrong. Martial God looked at Yi Hua and said faintly, I didn't expect that you actually didn't die. Oh. From what you said, you recognize me? Yi Hua asked faintly. You don't recognize me? Not everyone is worthy of me knowing them. Yi Hua said lightly, completely not putting the man in front of him in his eyes. Jing Tian chuckled, I've killed you once before. Have you forgotten all that? Upon hearing that, Yi Hua went into a daze. Soon after, a smile appeared on his face as he said, so it was you who killed me once, interesting. It's really interesting. Jing Tiandi smiled as if they were old friends who hadn't seen each other for many years. So, why did you take the initiative to come over this time? Jing Tian asked curiously. He realized that the man in front of him was different from 1,000 years ago. As for what was different, he couldn't tell. Yi Hua silently took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up. I want to cooperate with you. Cooperate. Do you think this is a game? After hearing what Yi Hua said, Jing Tiandi laughed out loud. Right now, I finally know what's the difference between Yi Hua and Yi Hua. In the past, Yi Hua wasn't so frivolous, but right now, he is carrying along an indescribable sense of arrogance. To me, this is just a game of playing house. Yi Hua said with a bored tone. Kid, you're really arrogant. Jing Tian's smile gradually disappeared as he said in a deep voice. It had been many years since someone had acted so arrogantly in front of him. Even the emperor did not dare to do this. I am arrogant, and I naturally have the qualifications to be arrogant. If you cooperate with me, you will still have a sliver of a chance. Then let me see if you have the ability to do so. Yi Hua let out a light sigh. Originally, I only wanted to use words to enlighten you, but unfortunately, I still have to use despicable martial strength. This is meaningless. Jing Tian was angered to the point of laughing. I have never seen such a daring person. Why didn't such a person die back then? The heavens actually let him live. Back then, I was able to kill you with a single blade. Even now, I am still able to kill you. Jing Tian said gravely as he pulled out the blade from his waist and moved quickly. This series of movements was done in one go, and it was so fast that no one was able to sense it. Jing Tian, who was standing at the side, didn't even notice his father pulling out the blade, and it was as if nothing had happened. Jing Tian's speed had already reached an unimaginable level, as expected of a supreme overlord. Yi Hua said faintly, The me back then and the me right now are worlds apart, and you are just making no progress, right? A large blade immediately condensed in Yihua's hand, and he used one hand to block Jing Tian's attack. Boom! The two ancient artifacts collided with each other, and an aura that seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth erupted out. Jing Tian immediately carried Bai Yu and flew into the sky. The entire mountain could be seen collapsing, and the entire military camp was shaken. Within the ruins, Yihua and Jing Tian stood at the same spot. Yihua's expression was very calm, but Jing Tian's expression was very astonished. This Yihua was actually able to block my blade with a single hand. How is this possible? Even if it was a supreme overlord of the same level, it wouldn't be so easy for him. Yihua said faintly while smoking his cigarette, "From your expression, I can see that you are not convinced." Humph. Then let me see how much you've grown in these 1,000 years. You will be surprised. Yihua said lightly. He knew that if he doesn't beat Jing Tian into submission, he wouldn't compromise. Jing Tian shouted towards his son, "Martial God, bring Bai Yu back and pacify the military camp." Yes. Looking at his son and daughter-in-law leaving, Jing Tian said gravely, "Change to another place." "All right, change to another place." After finished speaking, the two disappeared, and when they reappeared, they were already on top of a snowy mountain range. This place was desolate, and there was only the howling cold wind and tall and straight mountain peaks. Even the cigarette that was on Yihua's mouth was frozen. From this, it could be seen just how low the temperature was. It was basically impossible for any living being to survive in this place. Jing Tian kept the blade that was originally in his hand, and this action made Yihua curious. "What? Aren't you going to use a weapon?" Yihua asked faintly. Jing Tian laughed lightly, "I will let you die a worthy death." After Jing Tian finished speaking, a strange weapon was taken out from the void. Yihua's brows immediately wrinkled. This was a weapon that Yihua had never seen before. Blade? There was only the shape of a blade. However, this blade was much thinner than a normal blade, and it didn't have that sharp blade. However, the feeling that this blade gave off was definitely unconcealable fear. The entire blade was red in color. It was that kind of dark red color, and it didn't have any exaggerated luster. While it was low-key, it carried a very high level of attainment. However, this wasn't the main point. Yihua wasn't able to feel the pressure that this blade was emitting out, but he felt that this blade was very terrifying. This is the first time in my life that I, the Supreme Overlord, have felt something like this. A feeling of panic. Good. 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 I am so excited. The deity finally experienced the feeling of fear and panic. Too formidable. Too formidable. How did you make this blade? Yihua asked excitedly. End of this chapter. Chapter 1028. Jing Tiandi had always been paying attention to Yihua's expression. In the beginning, Jing Tiandi was very happy, but when he saw the shock and fear in Yihua's eyes, his happiness actually turned into excitement. What was there to be excited about? What is there to be excited about? Despair is the expression you should have. In fact, this was the second time Jing Tian took out this saber. It was as if he was caressing his own child. This was the masterpiece of his life, the only one in the entire world. With a proud tone, he whispered, "I call this weapon parting fire." Leaving fire. What a good name. This dark red color is something that was refined by a deviant flame, right? Yihua guessed and asked. I can feel a bit of the odor of a deviant flame. Yihua's guess caused the world to go into a daze. He actually guessed one of the materials correctly. Not bad, Yihua has some insights. That's right, but the heavenly flame is not used for tempering, but for injecting. Then, use the heavenly flame to refine it. Jing Tian said lightly, showing the demeanor of a great master. Hearing those shocking words, Yihua tightly wrinkled his brows. These words are easy to say, but it is extremely difficult to put into action. This required a very high level of proficiency in controlling the deviant flame. Just like fusing the deviant flame, I, the Supreme Overlord, have yet to finish fusing the deviant flame. And my little Ali had been playing around with the deviant flame a few years ago, causing me, the Supreme Overlord, to lose a lot of face. As for Yihua, this was also the first time that he had heard of someone being able to stuff a deviant fire into a weapon and use it as a material. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he would have thought that it was fake. The deviant flame that was stuffed into the weapon could not be controlled and would definitely go berserk. Yet, you still used the deviant flame to temper it. Are you kidding me? Why didn't you blow yourself up? Also, what kind of materials could withstand the burning of mystical flames? Ordinary ancient-era divine weapons would definitely not be able to withstand the burning of mystical flames. It wasn't that Yihua hadn't tried to fuse with the flames before. Strange flames were too ferocious, and even Yihua himself didn't dare to forcefully fuse with the flames. From this, it could be seen just how powerful and terrifying the flames were. Looking at Yihua's peculiar gaze, shockingly heaven and earth felt a sense of accomplishment. I can boast about this for my entire life, but I don't dare to take out this kind of weapon, because the moment I take it out, my family members will be in danger. The reason why I took it out now is because I feel that I can kill Yihua. After all, a dead person would definitely be able to keep the secret. Actually, the mysterious flame is only one of the materials. There are a total of 6 top-grade materials. I've been looking for these 6 materials for my entire life. There can only be success, no failure. Jing Tian held the leaf fire in his hand, his eyes blazing. If he could, he wished he could use this saber to conquer the world. Needless to say, right now, Yihua even had the urge to snatch the leaf fire. This leaf fire is simply too tempting. Other than the 2 types of deviant flames, what are the others? Yihua asked curiously. Right now, Yihua was just like a student, asking whatever he didn't understand. He wasn't afraid of shaking the heavens and the earth. After all, this fellow was going to die. You probably haven't even heard of the other 4 materials. Yihua felt that he was going to suffocate to death. This is simply teasing my appetite. I'm going to die anyway. Why don't you tell me and let me admire you? Yihua hurriedly said. If it was the Yihua of the past, he would definitely forget about it and not say anything. However, the current Yihua possessed humanity and knew when to be a bit more tactful. The feeling of being worshipped was not bad. Shocking heaven and earth coldly snorted, then let me tell you, do you know what pure gold is? Yihua shook his head. No my ass, I have never heard of it before. Pure gold came from the prehistoric era. It was an extremely precious metal at that time. It was the only metal that could withstand the heavenly fire. The so-called primordial divine artifacts now are actually all fake. Yihua nodded his head solemnly. Seems like I have to go and take inventory of the warehouse. If the warehouse is able to withstand the power of the deviant flame, then it would be a real ancient artifact. If he couldn't handle it, then it was fake. Shocking heaven and earth continued, even if it's an untainted divine artifact, it's not made of pure gold, because pure gold isn't tough enough. Yihua, you're F*** taking liberties with me. So. At this time, he needed a material. Its name was Jade Dipper. These were the tentacles of the primordial beast, the Jade Spirit. Jade spirits are extremely rare, but to refine them into a Jade Dipper, you need 100 of them. Yihua nodded his head. I have heard of the ancient ferocious beast Jade Spirit before, and its tentacles are indeed a kind of material that can be used to reinforce materials. However, I have never heard of chopping down 100 of them to make a jade dipper, because jade spirits are originally very rare. Where are we going to find so many jade spirits? If they were to make such a weapon, they would probably be able to make all species extinct. What are the other two? Yihua asked curiously. Draw heavenly fire. Alright, I have never heard of this before. I feel as if I have just come to the city from the countryside, and I don't know anything at all. This is truly embarrassing. How do I draw heavenly fire with this? Yihua asked. 3 types of artifacts are required to draw heavenly fire. These are all one-time use artifacts, and they are respectively, Crimson Flame Demon God Mirror, Void Scroll, and Supreme Overlord Primordial Spirit. Yihua let out a light sigh. Awesome! To think that there are so many requirements for drawing heavenly fire. I have never heard of the first 2 items, and that Supreme Overlord Primordial Spirit is most probably the easiest to obtain out of the 3 items. What is the last one? Yihua continued asking. Dear Soul. When speaking of Dear Soul, shocking heaven and earth's expression became extremely bad. However, Yihua was stupefied. What is Dear Soul? F*ck, I have never F*king heard of it before. What is Dear Soul? The soul of a loved one. Shocking heaven and earth said gravely. That's right. Shocking heaven and earth forged this weapon using his most beloved wife. Using her soul to forge this weapon. Back then, shocking heaven and earth had already reached the stage of going berserk, and with all he wanted to forge an unparalleled weapon, he didn't think too much about it. Even shocking heaven and earth didn't know about this matter. If shocking heaven and earth were to know that it was his father who harmed his mother, he definitely wouldn't forgive his father. For the sake of a broken sword, his father actually turned his mother into a demented person. When heavenly fire was forged, shocking heaven and earth clearly felt a familiar feeling. When he held on to this sword, it was just like holding on to the hand of his loved one. That kind of feeling was enough to destroy the world. No wonder it is said that one must use the soul of a loved one, so it is for this kind of feeling. However, when shocking heaven and earth woke up, it was too late for regrets. He didn't take out heavenly fire anymore and thought of all ways to cure his wife. However, his wife's soul was already gone. Where am I going to find her? However, in one of the ancient books, shocking heaven and earth found out that Supreme Overlord was able to cure a soulless person. That was why he agreed to the Emperor's request, that he must definitely save his wife. All of this is my fault. When Yihua heard the last request, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. The first few requests can be obtained as long as I spend some time, but the last request, even I, the Supreme Overlord, am not that ruthless. To actually use the soul of a loved one to forge a sword, this is simply inhumane. End of chapter. Chapter 1029. However, it was undeniable that behind every exceptional weapon, there was a frightening story. Because good weapons all needed to be sacrificed. Some people even directly sacrificed themselves. He wanted to smith something unique in the world. This was the madness of a blacksmith. How was it forged in the end? Yihua asked. The heavenly flame and the heavenly flame will combust, said Jing Tiandi lightly. Oh, so you have 2 types of mystical flames. Have you used them both? Yihua asked. The rarity of deviant flames was really very high, and it was the hardest to find out of all of the materials. Back then, even I, the Supreme Overlord, was only able to obtain a single deviant flame, and in the end, I somehow managed to obtain a lot of deviant flames. Moreover, deviant flames were unique, just like how heaven and earth had used these 2, so they would never appear again. Yes, Jing Tian said in a low voice. Yihua let out a sigh. Right now, I don't feel that this is a good deal for me, and I feel that I am making a loss. However, for this weapon to be able to make me feel fear, it has already proven its strength. Then, this divine artifact of yours belongs to the ancient era. What else does it belong to? Yihua asked again. Jing Tian said in a deep voice, I'll list him. Legendary weapon. Legendary weapon. Yihua muttered a few sentences to himself. I feel that there is still a bit of flavor to it. Legendary grade weapon. This time, I, the Supreme Overlord, will go and try it out as well. I want to see if I can forge a legendary grade equipment out of it. Yihua directly took out an ancient divine artifact. That blade of yours is no good. It's like a piece of paper in front of me. It's not very useful. Just as he finished speaking, shocking heaven and earth slashed at him with leaf fire. Yihua locked onto the leaf fire in Jing Tian's hand, and he discovered that the leaf fire in Jing Tian's hand didn't give off any other form, and it looked just like an ordinary leaf fire. This caused Yihua's expression to become grave. Bang! The primordial artifact in Yihua's hand broke into pieces like a piece of paper. However, right when Yihua was absent-minded, a red flame actually appeared on Yihua's blade. Different from the blade itself, this flame was a bright red flame. Puff! The terrifying out of the blue flame immediately sprayed towards Yihua. Of course, Yihua wouldn't go head-on against the out of the blue flame. His figure instantly dispersed, but he still touched it a little. Yihua, why are you running? Jing Tian asked faintly with a mocking tone. Yihua looked at his own robe, and a piece of it had already disappeared. Yes, it was a missing piece, not the kind that was burned. What kind of deviant flame is this? Yihua asked gravely. This is called the ageless heavenly flame. I purposely stuffed this deviant flame into my weapon. As long as you're touched by the non-aging deviant flame, your time will quickly run out. You can watch yourself grow old and die. Damn, was this really the ageless heavenly flame? This is called a dying deviant flame, okay? However, I seem to be immune to all races. I am originally from the undead race. Yihua didn't take out his weapon again, because even if he took out his weapon, it wouldn't be of any use at all. Under the damage of this, parting fire, any weapon would be useless. Thus, I can only use magic. Close combat is truly difficult to play with. My opponent is obviously a pay-to-win big shot. Such a weapon can only be made by someone who pays with money. This is simply shameless. True Dragon's Law of Light. Yihua immediately summoned 2 little white dragons, and the 2 dragons stood on his shoulders and floated in the air. That's right. This is just a buff. Don't misunderstand. 10 Ultimate. Yihua shouted out faintly. 10 Absolutes was just a trapping technique. Facing such a weapon, Yihua had no choice but to be cautious. This is the first time I'm being cautious ever since we got wiped out. I feel so excited, my life has reached the climax. Jing Tian stood on the air with the parting fire in his hand. This Yihua. Why does he know magic? In the past, he didn't know all these things, right? Starfall. Yihua shouted out gravely. A huge halo formed beneath his feet, and strange runes appeared on the halo. Jing Tian could feel the pressure that Yihua was giving off. If not for the parting fire in his hand, he would definitely be shocked. However, parting fire is a legendary weapon. It is a weapon that I meticulously forged. Passive, eliminate all negative emotions. Allow the wielder to maintain a godlike calmness during battle. Jing Tian still didn't use any techniques and continued to slash towards Yihua. At this moment, the 10 Absolutes trap was immediately activated. A huge barrier could be seen appearing. Jing Tian snorted coldly and directly slashed the barrier apart. Yi Hua was still condensing his energy. Right now, he can block the barrier for as long as he can. Jing Tian still underestimated the 10 absolutes trap. Some strange explosions even appeared, and there was even mud. Are you *king playing with a child? Jing Tian didn't plan to continue being in a stalemate with Yi Hua. He raised the parting fire in his hand, and a red crescent moon-shaped blade flew towards Yi Hua. Yi Hua was still condensing his energy. At this moment, the 10 absolutes trap was activated again. However, this blade chi was simply like a god of death. Everything that it touched would be cut into two. Even Yi Hua had to take note of this. This parting fire is truly formidable. Golden Phoenix Umbrella. Yi Hua had no other choice but to take out an ancient godly equipment to exchange with the parting fire. This pink umbrella was specially used to absorb the blade chi. Yi Hua directly threw the parting fire fan over. A pink radiance could be seen coming out from the parting fire fan, and the red blade chi was clearly being absorbed into the umbrella. However, a problem occurred again. The parting fire fan was just like a child that was about to explode. There's no helping it, this blade chi is simply too heavy. Swish! The blade chi once again sliced open the pink umbrella. However, at this moment, Yi Hua's starfall had also finished condensing. A huge fireball could be seen suddenly appearing in the sky. Yi Hua had summoned a meteorite to smash towards Jing Tian. Jing Tian succeeded in condensing the meteorite. Just like that, Yi Hua dodged the meteorite and successfully dodged the blade chi. Looking at the starfall that was in the sky, Yi Hua decided to add a little more firmament ghost fire. The purple-colored deviant flame immediately enveloped the starfall, causing Jing Tian's expression to darken. This fellow actually has doubts. Furthermore, it is the firmament ghost fire. He must have stolen it from somewhere. It must be. Yi Hua, even if you have a deviant flame, so what? Jing Tian said in disdain. In actuality, he was just a bit jealous. Although this deviant flame cannot be compared to parting fire, it is still very rare, and the main point is that its might is not bad. After finished speaking, Jing Tian shouted out angrily, "Silver moon slash." The parting fire that was in Jing Tian's hand seemed to have sensed Jing Tian's anger and began letting out a cry. A blade chi that was even bigger than before could be seen emerging. Right now, Jing Tian felt very comfortable. This can be considered as my first time testing it out. Ever since I forged the parting fire, I have never had the chance to use it. Don't get distracted during a battle. Yi Hua said faintly. Jing Tian's expression stiffened. This voice came from right beside me. When did Yi Hua get behind me? Jing Tian wanted to punch Yi Hua with the back of his hand, but Yi Hua's fist was even faster and directly smashed onto Jing Tian's face. Jing Tian was directly smashed onto the ground, and a huge pit was formed. At this moment, starfall also rushed down, and purple flames could be seen all over his body. End of this chapter. Chapter 1030. Yi Hua said faintly, "I'll let you enjoy the might of meteor fall first." However, just now, the silver moon slash had also touched the falling star. The terrifying power directly cut the falling star from the middle, but the speed was too fast, causing it to look intact with the naked eye. The gigantic meteor crashed down, and the entire mountain peak was instantly razed to the ground. Soon after, the ground started trembling, and countless avalanches occurred, and a gigantic crater appeared in front of Yi Hua's eyes. Yi Hua was muddle-headed just now. His weapon was indeed formidable, but his person was just a so-so. Therefore, by using his speed and strength, he would be able to easily obtain victory. He was also frightened by that weapon. What a loss of face. The terrifying energy of the explosion swept through the entire mountain range. Yi Hua was very curious whether or not this supreme overlord would be able to withstand the explosion. Horrifying shockwaves swept through the surroundings, and just when Yi Hua was feeling curious about what was going on, an anomaly occurred. The airwaves that were sweeping in all directions just now seemed to be absorbed by someone. It could be seen with the naked eye that all the power of the explosion was concentrated on a single point. Yi Hua's brows tightened. In an instant, that terrifying energy just now was actually attacking him. This was the first time that Yi Hua had come across this kind of weapon, and it was even able to absorb the energy after an explosion. This weapon is really a bit abnormal. If he were to use it on himself, he would definitely be invincible. Spirit concealment shield. Yi Hua called out gravely. An indistinct shield could be seen appearing around Yi Hua's body, and the surging energy directly crashed onto the shield. When Yi Hua sensed the different types of energy attacks, he felt that they were a bit interesting. Do not get distracted during battle. The same words rang out beside Yi Hua's ears. No matter what, this heaven and earth shaking was an honorable supreme being. His speed was nothing to scoff at. Sensing the signal of death coming from behind him, Yi Hua did not dare to be careless, and his body immediately disappeared. Right after shocking heaven and earth's parting fire slashed onto Yi Hua's afterimage, an immense pain came from his back. Bang! Jing Tian was blasted down once more, his body like a cannonball as he smashed through a series of mountains. Yi Hua stood in the air and stretched his neck. This was the difference in strength. There's no helping it. I want to keep a low profile, but my strength doesn't allow me to. Even if you create a weapon that can kill me, so what? You can't even cut my body. Unless I stand still and let you chop me. But that was impossible. I'm going to kill you. Jing Tiandi charged again with leaf fire in his hand. However, this time, Yi Hua discovered that the leaf fire saber had changed a bit. Some kind of mark had appeared on the saber's body. From the looks of it, some kind of effect has been triggered. But, it was useless. Because you are still too weak. Immediately, a pair of boxing gloves condensed in Yi Hua's hands. This was the cyan and red boxing gloves. The left side of the boxing gloves was green, and the right side was red. Both of the boxing gloves represented different personalities. Of course, it was also a primordial divine artifact. If you have the guts, then don't dodge. Jing Tian seemed to have understood a principle, that is, Yi Hua's strength. It was probably above him. Hee. Do you think that I am an idiot? Yi Hua's body disappeared once again. After that, his entire body was once again blasted down by Yi Hua, and another series of mountains toppled over. Yi Hua stood at his original position and did not move. If you come, I will continue to fight, it will be fun. Thus, the scene became like this. Jing Tian is going to be abused by Yi Hua to the point where he can't even take care of himself. He had an invincible weapon, but he couldn't hit his opponent. If he were to be hit by me, he would definitely die. After a long while, Jing Tian became in a very sorry state. His breathing became hurried, and there was even a trace of blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth. In actuality, Yi Hua didn't attack ruthlessly. If not, with the help of the leaf fire, Jing Tian would definitely die. It is useless to continue fighting, how about we have a chat? Yi Hua said faintly. This person still has some use, I can't let him die yet. Jing Tian was also aware of the difference between him and Yi Hua. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't understand how Yi Hua was able to reach such a level. Yi Hua actually reached such a level. This is simply something that is impossible. This time, the Emperor even asked me to kill Yi Hua. How is it possible for me to do that? It is evident that Yi Hua held back just now. For Jing Tian to be able to think like this, he was also aware of his own limitations. Since that is the case, Jing Tian didn't plan to continue fighting, and he kept his leaf fire. Although Yi Hua was jealous of this weapon, he didn't plan to snatch it away, because what is living within this weapon is his wife's soul. Thinking about how I am holding on to his wife, I want to f***ck, so disgusting, I don't have any desire at all. Facts have proven that a person's strength is far better than a weapon. Yi Hua said faintly. Very pretentious. It was only because Yi Hua had won that he was able to say such words. If he had lost, hearing what Yi Hua said, Jing Tian didn't say anything, because what Yi Hua said indeed made sense. The two's bodies disappeared once again, and they returned back to the headquarters. At this time, Wergod and Bue were waiting bitterly. Suddenly, they saw their father returning. And that man. When Wergod saw his father's downtrodden appearance, and the opponent's spotless robe, he became stupefied. This result wasn't hard to guess, my father was completely defeated. How is this possible? My father is a supreme overlord. He is an existence that can pinch an overlord to death with a single hand. How is it possible for my father to lose to such a handsome person? Wergod, you leave first. Jing Tian said gravely. Jing Tian took a look at his father, then said respectfully, yes, father. After finished speaking, Jing Tian left with Bue. Sit. Jing Tian sat cross-legged, and Yi Hua casually sat down and lit a stick of cigarette. Speak, what is your purpose for coming here this time? Jing Tian asked curiously. Yi Hua let out a breath, then said faintly, you have also seen it just now, if I wanted to exterminate your 5 million soldiers, it would be. Yi Hua stretched out his right hand and snapped his fingers. This means that if I want to kill you all, it would be just a matter of snapping my fingers. If it was before, Jing Tian would definitely feel that Yi Hua was acting cool. However, after the battle just now, he didn't even know how strong Yi Hua was. Just take that starfall for example, if that starfall landed on the top of my camp, I reckon that my entire camp would be exterminated. I am not trying to scare you, I have actually killed a lot of people, and I don't care about these things. It's just that, there are some things that are meaningless if I do it like this, what do you think? Jing Tian lightly let out a breath, then said helplessly, how do you want me to cooperate with you? Hearing that Jing Tian compromised, Yi Hua was quite happy in his heart. This meant that his plan was still progressing normally, and there were no mistakes. Actually, it isn't difficult, it is just a show. But, I want supreme. And Jing Tian didn't finish speaking. And what? Yi Hua asked curiously. Your life and Yi Yuanqing's life. Yi Hua's brows wrinkled, then after pondering for a while, he asked gravely, who asked you to do this? It's already 5 a.m., and I have all kinds of requests. End of this chapter. Chapter 1031. Since I have already been defeated by you, I will just say it directly. This war was originally a conspiracy between two emperors. My emperor wants to get rid of me, and your emperor wants to get rid of you and Yi Yuanqing. It is just that simple. Jing Tian said gravely. Emperors are truly scum. After hearing what Jing Tian said, Yi Hua went into a daze for a moment, then laughed lightly. Good fellow. This Huang Fei sure gives me surprises frequently. Since that's the case, I should return a surprise to you as well. I don't think that you will fulfill your promise, right? Yi Hua asked faintly. A supreme overlord who even has a heaven-defying weapon in his hands, you said that you want to die, but why don't I believe you? If it was possible, Jing Tian didn't want to fulfill his promise, but in order to save his wife, he had no choice but to do so. Actually, your wife is just missing a type of soul, I can help you find it. Yi Hua said lightly. This can be counted as giving Jing Tian a benefit. It isn't hard to find a soul, and as long as it is complete, Jing Tian will be able to return to normal. Jing Tian didn't understand and asked confusedly, "Back then, I killed you, so why are you still helping me?" Yihua picked up the teacup and took a sip. "If you didn't kill me back then, perhaps I wouldn't have my current achievements. In fact, I should be thanking you for killing me back then." This wasn't a sarcastic remark. Yihua indeed thought that way. Back then, how the Yihua died and who killed him had nothing to do with me. In fact, I should be thanking the Yihua. But now that the Yihua is here to provoke me, I'm sorry. When enemies meet, I can only use blood to baptize them. Jing Tian laughed. "I didn't expect that the person I killed back then would actually torture me like a dog thousands of years later. If this matter were to be spread out, I would be a joke. Thank you very much." Jing Tian thanked sincerely. "To be able to save my wife, this is a benefactor." Yihua said faintly, "There are a lot of things that you have to thank me for. Actually, a person like you shouldn't just be a duke, an emperor is more suitable, don't you think so?" After hearing what Yihua said, Jing Tian didn't say anything and remained silent. A duke who doesn't want to be an emperor isn't a good duke. Even your emperor wants to kill you, so what are you still hesitating for? Yihua persuaded unhurriedly. Actually, he didn't have any purpose, he just wanted to experience the feeling of persuading others. It seemed that the Supreme Overlord's IQ was very high. Right now, you have 5 million soldiers in your hands, and it is very easy for you to rebel. However, you are still lacking an excuse. After all, everyone wants to sit on the throne in an open and above-board manner, and not seize power. Yihua was also aware of this point. Even if one were to do something bad, one must still find a proper excuse. Jing Tian was very puzzled. Isn't this a bit too simple? Yihua directly changed the topic. How are you thinking about becoming an emperor? I can. Jing Tian said gravely. Yihua liked this kind of feeling. Humans are always unable to resist temptation, and if they are able to resist temptation, then it would definitely be because the temptation isn't strong enough. Yihua revealed out a strange smile, then disappeared from where he was. Big brother. Right after Yihua returned, he heard Yi Yuanqing's voice. This is a voice of concern, and it sounds very comfortable. You still haven't rested? Yihua said faintly. Big brother, where did you go just now? Are you injured? Yi Yuanqing hurriedly checked on Yihua. Right now, there is only a single weapon that is able to injure me. Yihua said faintly. This legendary weapon is very formidable. I like it. Yi Yuanqing said snappily, Big brother, can you stop joking around? Quickly go and rest, I have just finished discussing with the enemy's commander. When the time comes, we will just have to put on an act. You can go and distribute the soldiers, those who rush at the front will definitely be sending themselves to death. Yihua said faintly. This can also be counted as a sort of explanation, right? If you want to blame someone, then blame the emperor. This is the method that they use to eliminate dissidents. Hearing what his big brother said, Yi Yuanqing felt very uncomfortable. These are the soldiers that I am leading, is there really no other way to deal with them? I know what you are thinking, but in actuality, this entire matter is a scheme of the two emperors. Huang Feidi wants the two of us to die, and the enemy's emperor wants the commander to die. It is just that simple, do you understand? What his big brother said was simply like a clap of thunder exploding in Yi Yuanqing's mind. How is this possible? Chapter 1032. Such a large-scale war was actually arranged by the two emperors. This is simply infuriating. How could they bear to do this? It turns out that Big Brother also didn't want too many innocent people to die, that's why he took the risk to go and negotiate. Big brother is really strong. Suddenly, Yi Yuanqing hugged onto Yi Hua. This immediately caused Yi Hua to be dumbfounded. Yuanqing, we are brother and sister, we can't have incest. Yi Hua patted onto Yi Yuanqing's back and said softly. Yi Yuanqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he punched onto his big brother. Annoying, I am just glad that I have such a big brother, that's all. Ha! Yi Hua could only use laughter to cover up his awkwardness. I will make the arrangements. Yi Yuanqing knew that this was already the best result. After all, without Big Brother, everyone would have died. Yi Hua nodded his head, and Yi Yuanqing left. Not long after Yi Yuanqing left, Yi Hua went out again. Furthermore, the more he went, as if he was seducing someone. Of course, Yi Hua was seducing someone. It was impossible for the emperor not to send someone to kill him. Walking to a tree, Yi Hua began peeing. In the quiet night, a sizzling sound rang out. It seems like recently, Yi Hua was a bit on fire. After knowing that he had a family, he didn't do it with Qingye and the others anymore. It would be weird if he wasn't on fire. Do you people like to peek at other people peeing? Yi Hua raised his head and said faintly. Soon after, he shook his pee and kept it. The surrounding was still quiet. Yi Hua said while walking, if you want to kill me, you are actually in more danger than me. A slight fluctuation was produced in the air. The fluctuation was very slight, but Yi Hua had already sensed it. If a person is stupid, they will die. Young man, don't be impulsive. Yi Hua continued. You are not afraid of me. A voice rang out in the air. I am afraid of you. You are thinking too much. Yi Hua grabbed towards the air, and a terrifying aura locked the air. A purple iron chain instantly condensed out, and on the chain, there was even an abnormal flame. Firmament ghost fire. Before Jackdaw could even react, it was already trapped by Yi Hua. Moreover, Yi Hua had even bound it with the strange fire version of Asia. You! Jackdaw's body appeared, and he looked at Yi Hua in astonishment. The firmament ghost fire on Yi Hua's body made him feel very uncomfortable. Of course, this was only because Yi Hua hadn't activated his strange fire. Otherwise, he'd already be dead. Yi Hua turned his head and looked towards this unfamiliar man, then said faintly, as a supreme overlord, you actually became the assassin of the emperor, you truly lack brains. Who the hell are you? It's impossible for Yi Hua to be as formidable as you. Jackdaw was now certain that this wasn't the Yi Hua of the past. No one could become this strong in just 1,000 years. Yi Hua let out a light sigh. Being ignorant isn't your fault. How much potential a person can have depends on whether or not that person is willing to put in the effort. A person who is not willing to put in the effort will not be able to get anything in return. 1,000 years of time is more than enough for a person to change. Impossible. Impossible. Growled Jackdaw. This was complete nonsense. Even a storyteller wouldn't do something like this. Do you know how cruel the emperor you serve is? I'm not swearing allegiance. I'm just repaying a debt of gratitude, said Jackdaw bluntly. This caused Yi Hua to be a bit confused, repaying a debt of gratitude. If you're only staying by the emperor's side to repay a debt of gratitude, then it seems that you won't be able to leave. Wrong. His Majesty said that after this matter is over, I will be able to leave. Do you believe him? Yi Hua laughed lightly. Although he had only met this emperor once, he knew that he was definitely a cruel character. To be more accurate, those who were able to become emperors were all cruel characters. What, you don't believe me? Then, do you still believe that this war is actually a ploy by two emperors? Impossible. Said Jackdaw without even thinking. Huang Feidy would sometimes use methods, but he wouldn't be cruel to this extent. Why is it impossible? Don't think that things are too optimistic. Huang Feidi won't let you off. However, I might be able to help you. Yi Hua began tempting others again. Recently, I've been enjoying the feeling of tempting others. As long as I successfully tempt someone, I would feel a sense of accomplishment. No need. Then, it seems that I can only let you die. Yi Hua said gravely. Then, the metal chains that were made of abnormal fire began to tighten, and the abnormal fire began to burn even more intensely. This caused Jackdaw to feel suffocated. I've never seen such a strange person before. I don't need your help, yet you still insist on entering the stronghold. I've never seen such a tyrannical person before. Don't struggle pointlessly. What future do you have by staying by the Emperor's side? You should be doing what you're supposed to do, not becoming an assassin and helping the Emperor get rid of dissidents. The freedom that you want, I can help you. Yi Hua used freedom to tempt Jackdaw. In everyone's heart, freedom was the source of temptation. Grasping onto this point, Jackdaw would then focus on nurturing himself. Freedom. Understand. Jackdaw indeed wanted freedom, and he also longed for freedom. However, he still had to abide by the promise he made back then and help Huang Feidi. Why should I believe you? You have no other choice. I've said too much just now, and you've heard too much. That's why I can only kill you. Feeling the abnormal fire's corrosion, Jackdaw's entire body felt uncomfortable. He even felt that if this continued, he would die. Jackdaw didn't have an abnormal fire of his own, so he didn't have this opportunity. He was just unlucky. The burning of his soul caused Jackdaw to feel indescribable pain. He could only say, "All right, I believe you. Young man, you need to be tactful. I'm helping you, understand?" Yi Hua said calmly. The plan was still going on without any deviation. With a wave of his hand, the Asian binding around Jackdaw's body disappeared. What do you want me to do? Jackdaw asked in a low voice. Yi Hua smiled, actually, nothing much. Just continue with your work. Do whatever you're supposed to do. Then why are you helping me? Sigh. People often say that I'm a good person, so I might as well do something good. Yi Hua lightly flicked his sleeves, appearing very manly. Jackdaw couldn't understand this Lord Yi. Just what is he trying to do? Yi Hua didn't want to waste any more time with Jackdaw. He said calmly, I'll forget about you trying to assassinate me today. But don't forget, if I want to kill you, I can do it with a flick of my finger. It's very easy and very casual. With that, Yi Hua disappeared on the spot. Jackdaw stood there alone, a dumbfounded expression on his face. Even the Emperor didn't dare to threaten him like this, but today, he was threatened. Ever since he became a supreme overlord, no one dared to threaten him. But today, he was actually threatened by his target. Just what has Yi Hua been doing all these years? He's actually this powerful. He's not a match at all. Too terrifying. Chapter 1033. Jackdaw had a lingering fear in his heart. At the same time, he witnessed the power of an abnormal flame. It would be great if he had an abnormal flame too. Unfortunately, he didn't. As a supreme overlord, he didn't even have an abnormal flame. Jackdaw had obtained peerless, and through a stroke of luck, he'd become a supreme. Everyone else, on the other hand, leveled up honestly. However, to become a supreme overlord, an abnormal flame was needed. That was why almost all supreme overlords had an abnormal flame. Jackdaw was faced with two choices. First, report this matter to the Emperor. Yi Hua was very strong right now. Moreover, he already knows that you're working together with the Emperor of Shanghai. Second, choose to trust Yi Hua and obtain freedom. Jackdaw felt that the second option was more reliable. If Yihua wanted to kill him, he would have done it already. As for the first option, the emperor wouldn't easily forgive him. So, he chose the second option and hoped that his choice was correct. In front of absolute power, it was impossible not to lower your head. At this time, Yihua arrived at the abyss. There were souls everywhere. These souls were quite precious outside, but inside the abyss, they were very common. They were like stones on the side of the street. Looking at the red magma, black rocks, and countless wailing souls, Yihua casually grabbed. A female soul was obtained. The soul seemed to be very afraid of Yihua and was trembling. Yihua felt that this soul was quite obedient. It's decided then. I'll take her. Since I've promised someone, I'll definitely do it. After grabbing the soul, Yihua slowly closed his eyes and looked for the coordinates. Then, he directly appeared in the sky above Shanghai. Looking at the huge city in front of him, Yihua felt that it was no different from Spirit City. It seemed very prosperous. I thought Shanghai would be like purgatory, but it turned out to be like this. I'm a bit disappointed, since it was already late at night, there were fewer people on the streets. There were only a few drunkards walking around and a few brothel girls waving their hands to attract customers. Yihua didn't think too much. He directly went to the biggest mansion in the city. This should be the one. When he arrived at a garden, he saw a few maids taking care of a mentally disabled woman. This woman looked like a child. She ran around the garden without resting. The surrounding maids were suffering unspeakably. Yihua waved his hand, and all of the maids fainted. As for that middle-aged woman, she paused for a moment, then continued to play with the maids and did not have any reaction at all. Go. Yihua loosened his hand, and the soul took a look at Yihua with a puzzled look in its eyes. However, the soul still flew towards the woman without any hesitation. For the woman, she had a soul, and for the soul, she had a physical body. They were both complementary states. Yihua stood at the side and watched. The woman's body suddenly trembled, then fainted. A dazzling white light emitted out from Yihua's hand and enveloped the middle-aged woman. Not long later, the middle-aged woman and the middle-aged woman completely fused together. Why am I here? The middle-aged woman shook her head and sat up. After that, she looked at Yihua and wrinkled her brows. You? Who are you? Why are you in my house? Yihua smoked his cigarette and looked at the night sky. I promised your husband that I would cure you. Just as the woman was about to say something, her memories suddenly surged forth, and she finally knew how she had been living for so many years. After a while, the woman bowed towards Yihua and said, "Thank you." Right now, Yihua seemed to like this sentence a lot. The feeling of being thanked by someone isn't bad. Yihua responded, then reminded, something big is going to happen soon, it's best for you to continue pretending to be sick, understand? Alright. I understand, you can be at ease. Yihua was very satisfied with the attitude of this middle-aged woman. This is a sensible woman. I, the Supreme Overlord, hate those who are not sensible the most, those who still bother me every day, just like that Qian Yuqing, who is not sensible at all. In the future, you will be the Empress. A trace of an arc appeared on the corner of Yihua's mouth, then disappeared from the garden, leaving behind the middle-aged woman who had a look of surprise on her face. Empress? Did this man just say that I am going to be the Empress? How is this possible? Could it be that my husband is going to? Thinking up to here, the middle-aged woman began to worry. My husband, you better not mess around. Yihua had quite a lot of things to do tonight, and right now, there was still one last stop. And that was Shanghai's Imperial Palace, to kill a person. Who is it? Of course, it's Shanghai's Emperor. If this emperor doesn't die, how will he be able to ascend to the throne? Shanghai's imperial palace was rather unique. It was built on top of a mountain, and this was the symbol of royalty. Not bad, what a good idea. If Yi Hua was to judge, Shanghai's imperial palace was a bit more unique than Lingdu's imperial palace. Yi Hua directly arrived at the emperor's bedroom. Of course, he had to wear a mask. After all, he was here to kill someone, not here to chat. However, after Yi Hua arrived, he felt a bit awkward, because the emperor seemed to be in the middle of mating. Hearing this kind of sound, Yi Hua couldn't help but miss Qingye and the empress. I, the supreme overlord, seem to have been abstinent for a very long time. After I finish what I need to do, I will go back and have a good rest. Yi Hua sat at the side and waited quietly. After all, this is a person who is going to die soon, so I should just let the emperor enjoy himself for the last time. If not, the emperor will say that I am unreasonable and even interrupted the emperor's mating. While smoking the cigarette, Yi Hua waited silently. Time passed bit by bit, and there were quite a few cigarette butts beneath Yi Hua's feet. However, the sound that was beside Yi Hua's ears was still continuing. This caused Yi Hua to be very unhappy. My beloved concubine, what smell do you smell? Yi Hua heard the emperor's question. Seems like the emperor smelled the smell of my cigarette. Your Majesty, this is the smell of manliness that you are emitting out. A sweet voice could be heard, and goosebumps could be seen all over Yi Hua's body. Wait a moment, I will stand up and take a look. Your Majesty, hurry up then, I still want more, little vixen, I will satisfy you later. Yi Hua shook his head. You are the first person who has made me wait for you, you deserve to die. The emperor saw that there was actually a green smoke pervading the roof, and it felt as if there was a fire. However, this smell doesn't seem to be the smell of a fire. This smell is so unpleasant, if one smells too much of it, one's lifespan will definitely be shortened. However, very quickly, the emperor saw Yi Hua's figure, and his eyes revealed out in astonishment. Yi Hua threw the cigarette but that was in his hand onto the ground and stepped on it, then stood up. You are the emperor of this place, right? Who are you? How did you come in? Is this poisonous smoke? Jing Jintian questioned coldly. I feel that the other party is releasing poison into this place. Damn it. Yi Hua laughed lightly. Poisonous smoke, is it? These are all lonely smoke. Don't talk nonsense. If I say that it is poisonous smoke, then it is poisonous smoke. Yi Hua felt that this emperor was a fake. Compared to Emperor Fei, this emperor is a bit weak. End of this chapter. Chapter 1034. Alright, I will do whatever you say. Now, I want you to die. You want to kill me? Then, I am very curious about your motive for killing me. Jing Jintian asked gravely. I feel that this man is very strong. Yi Hua took out another cigarette and lit it. If you die, there will naturally be someone who wants to replace you. Ha! So, you want to snatch my throne. Then, let's see if you have the strength to do so. Before Jing Jintian could finish speaking, he felt that his throat was being strangled, and his entire body was lifted up. Yi Hua breathed out a mouthful of smoke. I don't need to prove my strength to you. Your death will help others. Wait. Wait. I can give you anything you want. If there is anything, let's discuss it again. Jing Jintian hurriedly said. I don't seem to be his opponent. I don't even know how he attacked just now. Furthermore, my strength is completely sealed. When did he seal my strength? Didn't you just say it? It's the throne. Yi Hua said faintly. It was as if he was playing house. Alright, I will give it to you, I will give it to you. No, I am not interested in your throne, it is others who are interested. Yihua flicked the cigarette ash, and the ash fell onto the exquisite floor. The emperor was in despair. Is there any difference? Yihua can't even remember how long it has been since he last killed someone. If I didn't guess wrongly, I have already forgotten about it. A suffocating feeling reverberated in Jing Jintian's mind. He slapped the air with his hands, and his legs were powerless. Don't kill me. I will give you anything, I will listen to everything you say. Jing Jintian shouted out powerlessly. Yihua sighed lightly. This is the most cowardly emperor that I have ever seen. He really admits defeat just because he doesn't agree with me. He can't even bring me any surprise at all. This is so boring. Thus, Yihua snapped his fingers, and Jing Jintian's head could be seen turning 380 degrees. Then, Jing Jintian slowly landed on the floor. Not long later, a golden primordial spirit that was panicking and wanted to run away. Yihua took one last puff and flicked the cigarette butt in his hand. The cigarette butt landed accurately on the primordial spirit, and the primordial spirit instantly started burning, and soon after, it turned into dust. Yihua let out a breath. Actually, killing this emperor isn't to give Jing Jintian an excuse to come back. Instead, they would first let others fight for it, and then when heaven and earth came back, they would be able to easily seize the throne. Strength and military power would be in their hands, and if these idiots were not afraid of death, they could give it a try. After finishing everything, Yihua went back to sleep. It has been a long time since I did something like this. In the past, he had always left it to his underlings to do. From the looks of it, I will have to hand over this kind of small matter to my underlings in the future. If not, why would I, the Supreme Overlord, accept so many underlings? Keep it for fun. The concubine on the bed waited for a long time, but the emperor did not return, so she put on a thin silk dress. That arrogant body was indeed very alluring. Emperor! Where are you? Emperor! Come on, stop playing, Your Majesty. When the concubine saw the emperor who had just made love with her, her eyes were filled with shock. The emperor had actually fallen. Great terror spread through the concubine's heart. She clutched her head and let out a world-shaking scream. Ah! This scream quickly attracted the attention of the imperial guards. When the imperial guards saw that the emperor had passed away, they were all shocked. Then, the entire palace was in chaos. Before long, the entire Shanghai was filled with the ringing of bells. Dong! 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 Shanghai's emperor had passed away. This kind of news immediately spread among the influential officials. However, inside Heaven and Earth's military camp, Heaven and Earth didn't sleep at all, because there were too many things that he had to consider right now, and he didn't know what Yihua was going to do. If I had known that this would happen, I wouldn't have agreed to Yihua's words. How could it be that easy to be an emperor? Father, you haven't slept yet. Martial God carried a wine pot and walked over. It was evident that he was planning to drink a few cups with his father. Heaven and Earth didn't teach his son a lesson. Poor. Okay, father. Heaven and Earth raised the wine cup and clinked it with his son. The father and son drank the wine in one gulp. Father, just what is going on? Martial God still didn't know what was going on, and he expressed that he was very worried. Heaven and Earth said gravely, Martial God, this man is very strong. Your mother can be saved this time, and we have also come to an agreement on the war this time. We will try our best to avoid losses. Really, father? That's great. Martial God was overjoyed. Originally, he felt that this was too impulsive, and he didn't expect that the other party would really cooperate with him. Heaven and Earth smiled. This is indeed good news. Martial God, in the future, don't let Buf follow you to the army, she is a man, understand? Martial God scratched the back of his head, and with a slightly immature expression, he said, "Father, Biwa is staying in my tent." "You brat. You brought a woman out to fight a war. I am going to break your legs." "Father, this time, Biwa was worried about me, and that's why she followed me out," Martial God explained, making it seem as if he couldn't live without a woman. Heaven and earth nodded his head. With so many people mobilized, anyone would be worried. "Martial God, Father has something to ask you, and you have to answer Father seriously." Seeing that his father's expression was so serious, Martial God immediately sat in front of his father and said respectfully, "Father, please speak. Do you want to become the crown prince?" "Ah." Martial God was immediately stupefied. "Ah, your head. Lower your voice." Heaven and earth directly slapped onto his son's head. "This idiot is still making a fuss over nothing." "How can I not make a fuss over nothing? This is a plot to usurp the throne." Even Martial God was stupefied. Report. A soldier suddenly ran in anxiously. Heaven and earth stood up and asked gravely, "What is it that you are making a fuss over nothing?" Report. Report to the general. Shanghai sent a letter. His Majesty, he passed away. Heaven and earth's eyes widened. Just a moment ago, he was still reprimanding others for making a fuss over nothing, and now, it is his turn. Martial God who was behind heaven and earth was also stupefied. The emperor died. Just a moment ago, we were still talking about the plot to usurp the throne, and in the blink of an eye, you are telling me that the emperor died. Heaven and earth didn't expect that it would be so fast. Fast to the point that I don't even have a plan. This Yihua is truly fast, formidable. Truly formidable. Just do it. Alright, I understand, you can leave now. Heaven and earth said gravely, carrying with him endless sorrow. However, right after the soldier left, everything returned to normal. Right now, Martial God's hands were trembling. Father is going to become the emperor, then I am going to become the crown prince. Father, did you get rid of His Majesty? Martial God asked in a low voice. Heaven and earth directly slapped onto his son's head. Are you blind? Do you think that I can directly turn into a fly and fly into the imperial palace? Then, who killed the emperor? Martial God asked weakly. End of chapter. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.